so today we are going to be working on some pantomime. So pantomime is acting without sound or props. And it comes from the Greek word, Greek because obviously theater started in Greece, the Greek word pantomimios, which means all imitator or imitate all. So you're imitating reality, basically. You're creating an illusion of reality for your audience. So there's a difference. So a lot of times you think about a mime as being the person in the black and white who's on the street corner with their gloves and their white painted face and they're trapped in a box, right? So that's mime. That's the silent art of using body movements to create an illusion of reality. But pantomime is a little bit more than that. It's not just creating an illusion, but you're using those skills of acting without words and props to tell a story. So it takes it from just a guy trapped in a box to, maybe the superhero is trapped in a box and he has to break his way out to save the world from the evil villain. So it's a bigger story, not just actions. So why should you study mime? Well, pantomime, it's the first phase of acting. Really, even before voice, your face, your facial expression, your movement, your gestures says a lot about who you are as a character. And even if your character doesn't have any speaking lines or assigned lines, then your movement tells a lot about who you are. So it starts with your body, then it goes to your voice, and then you can become the character in your mind. The language of action is also universal. Actions speak louder than words. We've heard that before, and it's true. And so your actions say a lot about who you are, even if your words don't match up with that, right? All right, so there's some principles of pantomime, some really important core elements. The one, your core is your key. The core is the center of your body. It's not your arms, it's not your legs, it's not your face, it's that center of you. And when you're feeling positive emotions, it's expanded, it's broad, it's free, and your gestures are really going to be animated and over the top. If you're feeling negative emotions, then it's tense and contracted and restricted in your gestures. So your center, your core, is where you first tell your audience who you are, what's going on, how you're feeling in any particular scene. Because it's pantomime and you have to rely on your movement to tell the story, you can't just say, I'm sad. You want to avoid covering your face. So if your character's crying, you're not just going to do this. You're going to show how sad you are with your facial expressions and not cover your face. You want to direct your story to your audience. What's that called? That's right. It's called cheating out. So all movements should be clearly motivated as well. You want to have a reason for doing something. So if your character's filling up a dish of water, are you doing that because you're measuring out a certain amount for a cake you're making? Are you putting that dish on the ground for your dog to drink out of? Is it a hot day and you're going to dump it on your head to cool yourself off? There has to be a reason why you're doing that movement. You also want to use posture and movements expected of your character. Now, we kind of introduced posture a little bit in one of your journals. Posture is more than just sitting up straight, right? A lot of times we think about, you need good posture. So you need to be, sitting up straight with your feet on the floor. Posture is different. Posture, when we talk about acting, is how you move as a character, how you, find your way in the world. So if you're examining someone in your home's posture, it's not enough to just say, well, they slouch, they have bad posture, right? Do they sit slouched because they're being yelled at by their parents and they just don't want to listen anymore? Are they sitting slouched because they have scoliosis and so their spine is curved? Are they slouched down because, the sun's really bright on their head and they just are trying to avoid it? So it's more than just bad posture. It's about, how do you position yourself in the world? What does that say about you? Is your chest really expanded because, you're a really confident person? That's posture, okay? So make sure that when you're moving as a character, you're moving to show who that character is, and that comes from your posture. The other thing with pantomime is you really have to concentrate. You guys are going to learn very quickly, now that you're in your home with lots of things going on all at the same time, that it's very difficult to really do something that is this focused and specific without true concentration. So it would be a really good idea to find a quiet place in your room, or find a quiet place in the basement, or even if, there's, a safe space in the outside area where you can practice alone. Find a space where you can really focus and concentrate. And then also because pantomime is the opposite of like improvisation, which is like on the spot without practice. Pantomime should be practiced. It should, not be the first time you do it when you record. You should have practiced it through many, many, many times so that you know every single movement you're going to make and it's planned out to a T. Because when you're doing something that only has movement, you can't expect your audience to know what you're doing unless you really know every single step and everything you're going to do. So, core is your key. Avoid covering your face. Direct your story to your audience. All movements have to have a motivation or a reason. Use posture and movements that are expected of your character. You want to concentrate and you want to practice. So the other thing is you don't have props in pantomime, right? So you have to know how to create an object in pantomime. So there's 5 steps. First, you want to visualize the object, really see it in your mind. Again, the audience can't see it. It's imaginary. So you need to know, is there a chip in that dish? Is there, a red streak across the side? Is there, in that coffee cup, is there a stain from having tea in it too long? Is there, cereal in the bowl and some of it stuck to the side? So really think about what that object really, really looks like. Then the next step is called the approach. We also sometimes call this advertising, right? Where you kind of let the audience know, hey, something important's about to happen. And so you're going to approach the object, move toward it. And then you're going to third, take the object or make actual contact with it. Now, you're not contacting because it's imaginary, but you want to pretend like you're physically making contact with that object. Then 4 is that show or tell to the audience its location, its size, its shape, and its weight with how you handle it. So is this a tiny little orange that's very small and kind of squishy, and it's sitting on the table? Or is this a giant watermelon that's really, really heavy and really hard to lift off the counter? Okay, so you want to really think about how to advertise to your audience what it is. And then the last one, we forget a lot of times when they're imaginary objects, but you have to let it go. If I were using a real mitten in a scene, I wouldn't just drop it and walk away. I would set it down, or I would put it on someone's hand or on my own. And so you have to do the same thing. You have to release the object or let it go. So again, those 5 steps in the principles of pantomime: visualize the object, approach the object, take the object or make contact with it, tell the audience its location, size, weight, and shape, and release the object or let it go. Then there are some basic like do's and don'ts of pantomime that you want to be aware of. So the do's of pantomime: exaggerate your facial expression. In real life, you might smile when you're happy or just kind of have a little smirk on your face. But when you're doing pantomime, it has to be a full body, over the top. I have never been this happy in my life. You have to exaggerate the facial expression so it's not just your face, it's your whole body. Do show the shape, size, and weight of the objects. And again, if you do those 5 steps, it'll be very clear to do that. Do focus fully on the task. Try not to get distracted. And if you do, try it again, okay? It's okay to make mistakes. You just got to keep going, find new ways. You guys are lucky because since you're not doing live pantomime performances, if you make a mistake, you can stop and restart, okay? So do that if you need to. Just know it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? Do show the audience who you are, where you are, and what is happening. Because remember, with pantomime, you're telling a story. You're not just doing an action, okay? There's an action involved, but it's part of a bigger story. Make sure you have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you'll have a template to help you with that. Do include a conflict or a problem, and try and take your time. If you don't have a conflict or a problem, it's really hard to have that emotion there. If you're just brushing your teeth and you have no emotional tie to it, then it's boring, right? But if you're brushing your teeth and all of a sudden the water's been shut off in your house, oh my gosh, how am I going to brush my teeth? I'm going to have the worst breath at school. No one's ever going to want to go to prom with me. It's the worst thing ever, okay? So you want to really think about what's the problem so that it gives you that emotional investment, okay? Then the don'ts. Don't mouth words. So this is a tricky one, but if your character is like putting their hand on a hot stove, they're not going to mouth the word ouch, right? Instead, it's going to be a big reaction to that hand on the stove. Also, you want to not make noise. Now, there's some exceptions with that. If you hear the person breathing, that's okay. If you hear their footsteps when they move, that's okay. What I mean is like audible noises. So if your character's sad and they're crying, I'm not going to hear the boo-hoos, right? Or if they're happy and they're laughing, I'm not going to hear the ha-has, right? So if they're crying, it's not. So don't make noises like that. Obviously, don't use props because it's pantomime. That's part of it. So use imaginary objects. And then because it's school, no violence, weapons, or anything else that would be school inappropriate. Okay? So those are some basics about pantomime. Now your assignment, there's actually a really good example performance from one of my students earlier this year. She had to do this as an alternate assignment. So that's great. You have an example to follow. So the first thing you're going to do is write a brief introduction paragraph to the pantomime. So what's that moment before scenario? What's led up to the pantomime, right? You're not just doing an action. What caused that to happen? Step 2, you're going to plan out your movements for the event. Think through not only what you do, but how you feel when you're doing it, remember. So for example, if you're getting ready in the morning, did you get up late? Did you wake up on time? And that's going to change how you're feeling. And think through those steps very specifically. You have to have at least 10 steps in your event. 10 is like bare minimum. You are obviously welcome to have more. Then you've got this example performance here. So if you click on that, that'll bring up my YouTube channel with the really great student example of what I'm expecting you to do. And then step 4 is important. That is the practice part. You've got to take time to really practice, okay? Now, these performances should not take more than like 2 minutes max. So when we're talking practice, saying like 5 times is only 10 minutes, okay? So it's not a big time commitment, but you do want to practice it. Ideally, try and practice it in front of one of your family members so that you can get some feedback. Because normally in class, you would be able to perform in front of your classmates and you would get that feedback. Then you want to record it. Now, you can record it in any way you want. If it's easiest for you to just have a sibling record it on their phone or using the webcam, do that. Or I've included a wee video link if it's easier for you to just do it in there. Either way, once you have that video finished, you want to upload it to Google Classroom and hit turn in so that I know you're finished. Okay? So that's your assignment. You have the whole week to complete it. If you have any questions, you can pop into that Zoom 3:30 every day and ask any questions. If that time doesn't work for you, let me know and I can arrange a time when it's better for you and your parents to come into a Zoom and we can work through the problems together, okay? I don't want you to be stressed. I don't want you to be confused. This is supposed to be fun, okay? So take that time to read through the assignment, make sure you know what you're doing, and if you don't, ask me so that we can figure it out. Don't stress about it, okay? So that is our assignment for the week. Have fun.